What is up, everybody? We are back with looking at our second team in our kind of team overview pre-training camp and preseason stuff. So we are looking at the Atlanta Falcons today. We looked at the Arizona Cardinals in our last video. Moving on to the Falcons. Dad, you have some high expectations for the Falcons this year. Could they win their division, the NFC South?
Yeah, I kind of think so. They, let's face it, you got a quarterback who's not extremely well known and he hasn't played a lot, but you certainly have two very top flight receivers, and you got a running game that's one of the better in the NFL, I would say, and a coach who exploits that, and so I think teams who run, they can thrive off that and stuff like that. So I think Atlanta's, it's trending up, I would say.
Yep, I agree with that. It's an intriguing team. I also think they're very much improved on their defensive side, which obviously for fantasy we don't pay too much attention to. But it does make a difference in just like how teams are going to play. If you're really good at defense, you're going to be in a lot more games. You're probably going to run the ball more. It's not that, fantasy gold mines are like really good offenses with terrible defenses. The Chargers have been like that. The Vikings are probably going to be like that this year where they just could be in a lot of shootouts. So I don't see that with the Falcons. I think they actually have a very much improved defense, and I think their team's quite intriguing. I'm going to share their depth chart with you guys here, and we're just going to get right into it, starting with the quarterback position. And this is really important for Atlanta because they have all these guys that they drafted in the top 10. Kyle Pitts was 4th overall. Bijan was 7th overall. I think Drake London was 10th. So it's like 3 offensive weapons drafted in the top 10 that we want to see unlocked, but it's all going to come down to can their quarterback support all these guys. So as of now, I think we're assuming is Desmond Ridder is going to get his chance. Desmond Ridder started 4 games last year. In those 4 games, he averaged less than 200 yards passing. He threw only 2 touchdowns in those games. No interceptions. Didn't really run the ball either. I guess he ran the ball a little bit, but not much. His best game was the last game of the year against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who I think we're still kind of playing, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, playoff.
Yeah, they're still kind of playing there, and he threw 224 yards, 2 touchdowns. So if he can do that, we're looking great. But if he does anything like he looked like in his first few games, and he was a rookie, you got to give him some bit of a slack, right? So, but if he looks, if we can get that from him, then I think we're looking really good. Dad, Desmond Ridder, first of all, any interest in drafting him in one quarterback leagues?
No.
And do you think he can support 2 fantasy options in the passing game?
No. I wouldn't. There's 32 quarterbacks, and if you're in a 12-person league and let's say you need 2 quarterbacks, Desmond Ridder is in my bottom third of the those 32 quarterbacks. So just because we haven't seen it. Mm-hmm. Now it all could change. On our previous team we were talking about Colt McCoy. If he throws for 225 yards a game, that's considered a win. It's the same thing here. I think you just said that. If he gets 2 touchdowns, he doesn't throw interceptions, throws for 225 yards a game, has an occasional, high 200s, maybe a 300-yard game. Yeah, things are different. So,
It's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, in super flex leagues, dynasty leagues, you need to have him on your roster, and also the backup needs to be on your roster. Taylor Heineke, who's we know his name. He's on Washington, kind of guts out wins. He's not the most gifted athletic guy, but he can win football games, and we've seen him kind of support like a Terry McLaurin, especially last year. So, I think Taylor Heineke, there's a really good chance I think he kind of takes over as the starter for this team, because this is a team that's trying to win. Arthur Smith, is this his third or fourth year with the Falcons? He doesn't have the luxury to lose. Essentially, he's been this is 21 and 22. This is his third year, and that's a long time in the NFL. If you're not winning, you're going to get canned. So I could see a very short leash with Desmond Ridder, and just kind of it's a positional battle to follow. And maybe it's better for Washington, or not, I'm sorry, Atlanta and the fantasy prospects, for all of us. Maybe it's better to have Taylor Heineke there.
I think Heineke signed like a $5 million contract, which is, I guess that's quite a bit for a backup quarterback. So,
Yep. And again, we're going to get into it. We got two stud pass catchers on this team, and if it's funneled through these two guys, Desmond Ridder doesn't have to do a lot. I always go back to Teddy Bridgewater in 2020. He was with Carolina. He averaged 250 passing yards a game. He threw 15 touchdowns in 15 games. So he was averaging 248 passing yards and 1 touchdown a game. And he had 3 receivers, DJ Moore, Robbie or Chosen Anderson, and Curtis Samuel, all finish in the top 25. You wouldn't expect that with those numbers and a guy like Teddy Bridgewater to support 3 fantasy relevant receivers, but he did. So you don't have to do much. Like we said with Colt McCoy, throw 230 yards, and hopefully 150 of those, 160, 70 of those go to the two guys we're going to talk about. But we're going to get into the running back position. It all starts with Bijan Robinson, their top 10 running back they drafted last year's draft. Dad, he's going very high. He is a first-round pick. I know you're slightly worried about him. Would you draft him at the end of the first round? Let's say you have the 12th pick and Bijan.
Absolutely.
Okay. Are you expecting?
I might even draft him in the middle of the first round. So,
currently RB3. Currently RB3 behind McCaffrey and Eckler. Are you taking Bijan over Jonathan Taylor and Saquon Barkley?
I would. That's just I think he's going to produce, and he's going to get the volume from the coach. We know he can catch the ball. This very easily, I mean, you could be a 1,400 yard rushing season with 50, 60 catches. We know that's pretty huge fantasy-wise.
Yes.
But a lot can happen. He can step on the field the first day of training camp and tweak his ankle, and then we'll hear, well, geez, he was never right for the whole year. And believe me, I think it was back in the 1990s, the Cincinnati Bengals drafted a running back very early in the first round. I think his name was Kajana Carter. He was out of Penn State. I know I'm showing my age. And he blew his knee out in like the first week of training camp, and the dude was never the same. He was a top 5 pick. Can't mistake guy. So, but anyway, continue on.
Yeah. I think given health, Bijan's going to be awesome. He goes to the perfect team that wants to run the ball, the team that's very good at running the ball, like all their advanced stats in terms of, the running game is not just the running back. It's the offensive line, it's the receivers, it's everyone. And the Falcons are maybe the best team in the NFL at running the ball, and they're just their system. I always tell people they turned out Tyler Algier into a 1,000-yard rusher, and he averaged almost 5 yards a carry. And Tyler Algier is not this special talent. He's a solid player. He's going to be in the NFL for several years.
He was an ex-linebacker at BYU.
Yeah. He's, 5th rounder, and he wasn't gifted like Bijan is. And that doesn't mean that Bijan's just going to be handed the keys to the car type of thing. But he has
Well,
all the talent there.
Yeah, I think the question, the question isn't too much about Bijan here and what he's going to do. The question is the guys behind him now. We just talked about Algier and what he did. So they got to have a running back too. Then what happens to Patterson? Does Patterson line up more as a wide receiver? We don't know. I'm sure they'll keep him. He's not a spring chicken either, but he's produced the last 2 years. Very good numbers. So just something to consider. If a big time running team does Tyler Algier get you 500-600 yards? Good possibility.
Yeah, maybe even more. Since Arthur Smith, our offensive coordinator of the Titans, from 2019 and 2020, I believe he was the offensive coordinator. 2019, the Titans were top 10 in rush attempts, and in 2020 they were second, right? And then you look at the Falcons in 2021. The Falcons were pretty high up there. They were a top 10 team. And then, of course, last year they were maybe near the top again, maybe a little behind. I think they were number one. They ran the ball 560 times, 559 times in 17 games. I'm going to do quick math here. That is running the ball about 33 times a game. So unless you think Bijan's going to get 30 carries every game, Tyler Algier is going to get 10 touches, right? Cordell, or maybe 8, and Cordell Patterson gets a few. I definitely think we need to have Algier on rosters. I know, Dad, you hate this word, but he's going to be a high-end handcuff. And maybe if you have Bijan, pair him with Tyler Algier, so you're kind of guaranteed a running back there for the Falcons. But I definitely think Algier deserves to be on team still, because if Bijan does go down, Algier is going to be a great play like he was last year, right? So Patterson, maybe they use him more in the passing game. If you look at the receiving core, I mean, their second receiver is Mac Hollins, and then their third receiver is Scotty Miller.
I don't even know. I know who Scotty Miller is. He was Tampa Bay, but
Mac Hollins, he was on the Raiders last year. He had a couple big games, but he's a veteran guy. He's been in the league since 2017. Entered the league with the Eagles, was on the Dolphins, Raiders last year. He's nothing. It could be Cordell Patterson is the second best receiver, even though he's listed as a running back. By the way, I think Cordell Patterson should be a Hall of Famer, hot take, because he's the greatest kickoff returner in NFL history. But anyways, Tyler Algier definitely deserves to be on rosters. Cordell Patterson, we'll see. If he is going to be kind of the second wide receiver, third target getter on this team, and he's getting 8 carries a game, there's some intrigue. If he catches also 3 passes a game, 4 passes a game. So, but we'll get into the receivers. It's really Drake London and no one else you want on this team. Again, Mac Hollins is probably the wide receiver too. Scotty Miller is going to play like that vertical deep threat slot receiver kind of player. So Drake London, Dad, let me tell you where he's currently going, and I want you to tell me kind of what you're thinking of Drake London. He's a wide receiver 22, and you have to take him in the end of the 4th round. Are you in on Drake London at that spot?
Yeah, maybe. I think, I'm kind of, extending. It's kind of putting it out there a little bit. I mean, that's a little bit of a push, I guess. And it's not because of Drake London. I guess it's just overall the passing game. But he was almost a 900-yard receiver last year.
Oh yeah.
So
the talent's there.
So all it takes is 10, 12 more receptions, and we throw a couple more touchdowns, and he's got 6, maybe 7 touchdowns. 80, 85 catches, 1,000, 1,100 yards. We're thinking of them a lot different. So, yeah, maybe, since I look at it that way,
Yeah.
maybe I wouldn't have such a problem.
Let me put it this way. So we'll talk about Drake London, and then Kyle Pitts should be. It's either Kyle Pitts or Drake London. Those are the top two receiving threats on this team. Would you rather Drake London at the spot I just told you, end of the 4th round, or you can get Kyle Pitts at the end of the 6th round? What do you prefer there?
Probably like Drake London just a little better. I know Kyle Pitts, he had a pretty good rookie year. I know the touchdowns were an issue, but that isn't necessarily him. He caught a high volume of passes. Last year he got hurt, so I don't think he had a complete season, but
my only worry about London is I could very much see a situation where, this team, again, is going to run the hell out of the ball. So I can very much see a situation where both London and Pitts are like 800 to 900 yard receivers. And, we'll see how many touchdowns. Let's just say they both catch 6 touchdowns. And if that happens, Kyle Pitts is way more valuable because of the position he plays. An 800-yard tight end is way more valuable than an 800-yard receiver. I guess that's my only concern, is that something like that happens. What if the team only throws for about 200 yards a game? That's around 3,000 on the season, a little bit more than 3,000 on the season. Wait, did I do that right? Let's see. Yeah, about 3,400. Yeah, so I don't know. That's my only worry if it ends up something like that. If Bijan gets 500 or 600 yards receiving, and actually Cordell Patterson's a little bit more involved than we thought. I'm just slightly worried that if they both end up like at 850-yard receivers, I want Kyle Pitts. So, and that's a legitimate fear, I think, with this team. We just don't know with Desmond Ridder, right? I think that's the biggest thing. Anything else? I mean, Jonnu Smith's there.
I think Jonnu Smith has got to help Kyle Pitts, allow him to do some of the more traditional tight end duties that Pitts doesn't do. Maybe he's a better inline blocker, and Pitts, we know Pitts doesn't line up at that traditional tight end spot as much, so I think it'll definitely help the offense. So
yep. And then if you notice on the screen, there's I put, just to give him some love, hybrid player Felipe Franks. He was a quarterback. He was playing in, I believe, the USFL a lot, and he was actually pretty good in the USFL. He's been bouncing around on NFL teams as well. But they're transitioning him to tight end, and I read in an update they're looking at him as like a Taysom Hill kind of role, hybrid quarterback, tight end, running back type of player. So that will be fun to watch. Maybe I think every team should have a Taysom Hill type of player. He adds a lot to the offenses, despite how much we kind of hate it for fantasy. But that's about it for the Falcons. I'm going to give you my prediction first. I think this team's going to be there. I think the division winner for this team is probably going to win 9, maybe 10 games. I think the Falcons are going to be there, 8 wins, 9 wins. I don't think they're going to win the division, though. I think another team that I'll save for later. But I'm going to put them at right around 8, 9 wins, relevant all year. Dad, what's your prediction for the Falcons?
They could win They definitely could win their division. So. 100%. And they could be a wild card playoff team, or they could be a division. They're playing a wild card weekend or something like that. I could see it, and they get into the playoffs. I'm not sure how their defense is. And if they run the ball, they control the ball, and the defense plays well. that's how games are won in January and stuff. So I like the Falcons. Going back to what you said about Patterson, the Hall of Famer, until another guy who returns kicks gets in the Hall of Fame, then Patterson can't get in there. That's Devin Hester.
Yep.
He needs to go
Devin
first.
Hester's. Yeah, he should be in the Hall of Fame. Greatest returner of all time is Devin Hester, punt and kick. I think Cordell Patterson, he never really returned punts. He was a
kickoff returner,
kickoff returner, but he has the most touchdowns for most kickoff return touchdowns in the NFL history, and he's third all time in NFL history in average over 29 yards per kickoff return. And this is in an era when kickoff returns are so diminished, right? So I think that makes it even slightly more impressive. And I just wish the guy's been. If you guys don't know this, the guy's been in the league forever. He was a top 10 pick from out of Tennessee. The college. He went to the Vikings. Never did anything, and it wasn't until kind of with the Bears in 2020 started using him how he's used now, and then definitely the Falcons the last 2 years, where they thought, this guy's like the greatest kickoff returner in the NFL history. Maybe we should get the ball in his hands a little bit more by turning him into a hybrid running back receiver instead of just trying to make him a receiver. And it just kind of frustrates me. I wish they would have used him more like this early on in his career. Percy Harvin's another guy that I wish they would have used a little bit more like that.
I think Harvin was hurt. I think that's what Harvin's.
Yeah. He was, but they're trying to fit him into you're a receiver. Tavon Austin's another guy and he did kind of have seasons like Patterson has had, but it's these guys are obviously very talented. Just get the ball in their hands. So that's my rant about
even
Patterson.
Even New England had Cordell Patterson for at least a year or two, and we're talking the last couple of years of with Brady. He'd line up in the backfield. And Brady'd turn around and pitch the ball to him, and it's Patterson rips off a 10-yard run or something like that, and you go, geez, how come that guy doesn't play more,
Yeah, seriously. I mean, he averaged 4.8 yards a carry last year. I wish we would have seen it more, because I think that would have solidified his Hall of Fame case. But we'll shut up about that. We're going to end it there. Thank you guys for watching. As always, like the video, subscribe to the channel. We'll be back looking at the Baltimore Ravens next. So we'll see you guys then.